What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear podcast. And today we want to talk about the best and biggest free agency signing of the Chicago Bears in the 2025 offseason. Let's talk about Drew Dalman, center from the Falcons. And yes, I already said that sentence with the last Film Room episode about Grady Jarrett, but honestly, I forgot that we acquired Drew Dalman through free agency because I expected in my brain that all of our interior offensive linemen were acquired via a trade, but that's obviously not true. So let's talk about the biggest impact signing of the Chicago Bears offseason in free agency, Drew Dalman. Like I said today, it's the slow time of the offseason of the year in between the OTAs and training camp. So let's dive into all the free agent and offseason additions for the Bears. And like I said today, is all about the new center, Drew Dalman, which is very, very exciting because he is a phenomenal player, to say the least, right away. Now with that, I have a new format for my videos. I already applied it with the Grady Jarrett video, so if you want to check that video out, do it after this video. You'll see it's basically the same approach to each and every video now moving forward, if it makes sense for the film rooms at least. And today we'll talk about what the new center adds to the Chicago Bears offense, what the value of the contract is, and if it's a good value, and if it's overall a good signing for Ryan Poles and the Bears moving forward. And with that being said, let's get right into it and talk about the contract situation, how he got to the Chicago Bears. Drew Dalman signed a 3-year, $42 million contract, including a $6 million signing bonus and $28 million guaranteed. So good money for the new center of the Chicago Bears. In 2025, he's going to have a cap hit of $13.6 million, a pretty big cap hit. And then in 2026, it's going to move up a little bit to $14 million, but that's completely fine because I think that player is absolutely worth it, as you'll see later on. And offensive line is going to win you football games, especially on offense, right? So it's probably the most important position group in all of football, to be honest. And then for a potential out, the Chicago Bears could get out of this contract in 2027, would only take a $2 million dead cap. But, I mean, thinking about Drew Dalman, he's only 26 years old. He's going to be the center for a long time in Chicago. So he's going to have another year in 2027 under contract, and he would be potentially a free agent in 2028. As for the stats in 2024, let's move on to those. He played in 9 games and started all 9 of those, had 554 snaps, all at center, no other position, had 3 overall penalties called on him, and he allowed 2 sacks overall. Now, for the advanced stats, he missed 9 games due to an ankle injury that he suffered early in the Kansas City Chiefs game. I saw the injury. It was probably something like a high ankle sprain or whatever it was. But anyways, he missed 9 games last season. And then he came back in week 13 against the LA Chargers. And with week 13, he only allowed a 3.7% pressure rate overall in that time span where he played. So week 1, 2, 3, and week 13. Throughout those 4 games, he had a very low pressure rate allowed. And that was 6th in the league among centers during that time. Now, I don't have any more advanced stats, but that's all I can give you. But it's a pretty interesting stat, and it's definitely reflected in the film later on, as well as you see when we break down the all 22. And speaking of all 22, that's basically all I have for the stats. It's an offensive lineman. There's not a lot of stats. So let's get into the game tape and talk about how good he actually is and if the stats paint a comparable picture. And to get you guys into the mood right away, Drew Dalman is an excellent run blocker and a master of the wide zone scheme. Now, Ben Johnson runs more than just wide zone. There's going to be a lot more gap schemes with the Chicago Bears in 2025 and a variety of different runs, so it's going to be a little bit of new things for Drew Dalman. But in 2024, watching the Atlanta Falcons tape, it was a wide zone clinic. They spammed wide zone every single game and were really successful with it, with Bijan Robinson at running back, and Drew Dalman, like I said, is a master of that scheme and was an exceptional run blocker that was so much fun to watch. Now, a couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, his speed. I think his lateral quickness off the ball is exceptional. His first steps to win over a gap are basically guaranteed with him every single time, and it was a joy to watch how quickly he explodes off the ball. He also needs to snap the ball, right, which is always a challenge for centers too, and get a good snap in, and then works laterally to win over a gap with the first couple of steps. So that was one big plus with him in a wide zone scheme. Next point I want to make is his core strength in combination with all of that, because he really has the ability to hold a block while moving and having the strength to not get pushed back. There's a couple of examples of that where he did it really well. And as I said, his first step is great, and then he also has a core strength to not get pushed back. So he really can move and is pretty strong while doing so in a wide zone scheme. Third big plus for me is the timing. I think with wide zone, you have so many variables in how it can actually hit. It can hit in probably 4 to 5 different gaps. So if we're not offensive lineman, it's not an easy scheme to run, and you need good timing to get into the second level. And Drew Dalman is a very smart player that is patient with the double teams and has great timing to the second level defenders. And in combination with his great angles he is a deadly player for that scheme, like I already mentioned. And to get into a couple of examples of him running a wide zone and breaking it down a little bit more in detail, there's one great example against the Minnesota Vikings where they are in a goal line situation, and he has a big win on the wide zone on play side against an over front. The tight end motioning over against the wide 9 there by the outside linebacker is forced to kick him out because that wide 9 actually takes a pretty good angle and contains here, making the running back cut back into the C gap. And now Drew Dalman's block actually gets very important because he has a key reach block here against a frontside 3 technique, which is not an easy block to make. But what he does right here is he's, first of all, again, explosives off the ball with a great lateral first step, and then he wins play side early and gets enough of the lineman to prevent a underneath block shed by that defensive lineman, and gets a big time frontside win with a great angle for a touchdown, I think, or for a big first down for the Atlanta Falcons. So that was a great example of him being an elite reach block player on wide zone as a center. And then against the Giants, there's another great example of him being a good player facing a over 4-3 front with a play side 4-eye, and this is just a phenomenal play overall by him and Matthew Bergeron go orange, the left guard of the Falcons. You have a double team from Dalman and Bergeron, and it's already incredibly tough to block a 4-eye in that situation, reaching him with a double team. But again, phenomenal speed off the line helps him, and his quickness to win that block in the first place, which is so good. And then as the cutback happens from the running back, Dalman sees the linebacker working back inside, has great quick thinking and awareness on this play, and then he works to the linebacker to the second level and lands another key block for Bijan Robinson, or whoever is the running back in that situation, I don't remember, to gain big time yards. So that was another great example of Drew Dalman running wide zone and working to a double team. And honestly, I could go all day about his run game skills and his run game tape. I mean, there's so many different videos and clips of him winning against a frontside 2-eye, which is against Deron Payne of the Washington Commanders, who's obviously a great football player. Or another example against the Eagles on a frontside climb against Zach Bond, who is in the A-gap with leverage. Winning that is also very difficult, but he gets it done with his athletic ability. So I would just say the underline is he is an elite run blocker, and he's gonna kick ass with the Chicago Bears run game and head coach Ben Johnson. with the pass protection, there's multiple things we have to look at with the Atlanta Falcons, what they did in 2024 and how Drew Dalman performed. One thing for pass pro overall, I think he's a really, really solid pass protector. He's not as good as he is in the run game, but he's still a very good pass protecting center. And for the couple of points I want to make where he really excels at, first of all, play action wide zone. Obviously, running that much wide zone, you have to have a counter off of it, and that's obviously play action. And for that, you have to be explosive off the ball once again to sell the same look like with wide zone. And then he's showing great hand placement and strength to move the players and keep them there after they recognize that it's actually a play action pass. And he just shows again the ability to move his feet with a good base at all times, being under control and doing nothing too wild. And he also sells play action really well, right? Play action is not just dependent on running back and quarterback meshing or faking a mesh. It's also the offensive line giving a good, quick look like wide zone, and he does that to perfection. And another great point to make is his footwork and quickness in pass pro. Talking about movement ability, I mean, against the Eagles, there's a great example with a half slide starting from the right guard because he's uncovered, and the defensive tackle Moro Ojomo here, really good rookie from Texas last year, takes an inside release after he slides. So obviously Dalman takes left steps first because they're sliding left, but the defensive tackle goes back inside. So with a good couple of first steps and hand placement, Drew Dalman is able to control him early on, and then as the defensive tackle tries to push-pull to the left, Drew just reaches over, anchors again, and shows his strength and quickness to take him for a dance to the other side, and then the ball is released out of the quarterback's hands. So that was a great rep at center pass protecting right there against an interior defensive lineman. He had multiple times, a lot of times, great reps where he actually anchored, dropped his butt, and just wasn't moved by the defensive lineman, especially on Zolo blocks. You saw the ability, and even though he is not the biggest guy, he really did well on solo blocks against strong defensive linemen. He struggled on a couple of plays against some elite guys, but it was nothing too bad, and he really held up his own and gave the quarterback enough time to get the ball out quickly. And then two more abilities I want to talk about. First of all, stunts and loops. That's obviously important with the NFL and defenses just evolving and doing more and more fancy stuff. Stunts and loops get more popular every single season. Look at Brian Flores just doing crazy stuff with the Minnesota Vikings. And Drew Dalman is great against that because he has patience. He's a very smart player in the slide pass protection, has good eyes and doesn't get fooled. And then he picks up stunts and loops consistently and is just a very good player against those. I'm not worried at all if we face a stunt-heavy team. He's going to pick that up every day of the week. And then the last point I want to make with his pass protection / run game protection kind of is the screen game. I think he did a good job at losing the first level block to selling the defensive lineman, oh, I won the block early, and then he moves to the second level with some good angles, good speed, and then he can lay a good block for a running back or receiver on his screen as well. So that's definitely a ability that shouldn't go unnoticed too. And with that, we have reached the conclusion of today's video. And what can I say about Drew Dalman overall? What does he add to the Chicago Bears? First of all, stability and the answer to the long-issued center position. Ryan Poles took money in his hand. Ben Johnson said, I'm not working with whatever we have at center. I want him. They went out, gave him some money, and he came to the Chicago Bears, and that adds stability and the answer to the center position. He will elevate the bar of this offensive line and is a huge upgrade for the run and passing game, and he is a top 5 center in this league. For the contract, I think it really doesn't matter because we finally have a center. It's such an important position. He is that guy, so to me it doesn't matter. But even considering the money that he's gotten, I think it's a really good deal and it's not an overpay at all. So I'm really happy with how this whole situation played out for Drew Dalman. And then overall, for my final words, I think he's an exceptional player. He's a great signing. And if those are the first two impressions I give you in my final conclusion, I think he's a really good get for the Chicago Bears. And with that being said, guys, that's the end of today's episode. I really hoped you'd enjoyed it. I loved watching Drew Dalman's tape. What a great get for the Chicago Bears. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this signing for the Bears and how you think Drew Dalman is going to do for the Bears moving forward. Like and subscribe if you like today's video. And as always, guys, bear down.